Hey everybody, welcome back to Brent's Backyard Redneckery. Usually every year I try to grow a few cantaloupe, a few honeydew because my youngest son really enjoys them. But this year I didn't have a very good success with everything. I did get a couple of nice big honeydew melon though. And I've decided this year that I'm going to take those and turn them into honeydew jam. Now honeydew is really difficult to work with when it comes to getting it to gel and do everything like that. But I'm going to show you how to do that and give you the recipe down in the description whenever it's all over with. So get ready. I'll tell you what you need to do. Let's get into it. So I got 2 honeydew this year. I've peeled the bigger one, cut it into cubes to eat. And I've got this smaller one, about 2-pounder, that I'm going to turn into some honeydew jam. Now you can cut these up however you want. I'll usually go across that way and then turn it sideways, cut it this way, and then cut it this way. And then I'll take it and cut a slice here, and then flip this over, cut it down the middle. So that's how I cut mine up, and I'll show you how to go from there. And once you have it cut into slices like this, we're going to take it and chop it into smaller ones like so. Cut off the rind like so, and that's what we're going to end up saving for our jam. So now that I've got it all cut up and weighed out, I've got almost 2.3 pounds. So we're going to combine this with some other ingredients, which I'll pull out in a minute and show you, and then we'll make some jam. All right, so I've got 8 cups of diced honeydew. What I've got right now is I've got this over a medium heat. I'm going to let this warm up, and I'm going to start smashing it so it's nice and soft. Once it gets up to that point, we're going to toss it in the food processor and blend it up, and then we'll start adding our sugars, our pectin, and just a hint of vanilla. See how this turns out. All right, so I've started getting this chopped because it's started to break down a little bit. It's a little bit more tender. Looks like I got a seed in there I need to get out. Yep. All right. So I'm going to let this get a little bit softer, and then I'm going to test out my tool that I use to smash grapes with. We'll see if that'll help it out any before I stick it into the food processor and turn it into mush. All right, so I've got this chopped up pretty well with my meat chopper. Let's see if this does any good. I don't know that it's going to make that much of a difference, so I'll probably just let this get a little bit softer and then toss it in my food processor and turn it into pulp. And we'll measure out how much pulp I have, and that's how much we'll adjust our sugar amount to how much pulp I have, because I've started with 4.5 cups over there. But if the pulp is less than what I think it's going to be, then we'll adjust the sugar down. If it's more, I'll adjust it up. Another thing you need to do, you can do this as your stuff is cooking. You want to get your jars and place them in a large enough pot that you can cover them with water, and we'll put those on to boil. I always put my lids and my rings in there with them, and then we'll fill this up with water where it's up above that. I don't expect to have more than 6 jars of this stuff, but I'll fill it up to right above, about an inch above this, and then we'll get that to boiling and let those jars get ready. Another thing, whenever you're filling this up to get your water ready, make sure you use hot water. That way it'll come to a boil quicker, and it won't take nearly as long as it would with cold water to get this up to temperature. So this is down to a good consistency here. Frickin' steam. So I'm going to take this and put it in the food processor and get that chopped up and see how much pulp we have. And then we'll measure it out for our sugar. All right, so there's really no markings on this as to how many cups are in it, but that's how much I got in here. So we're going to blend that up and see what it turns into. Ooh, that's going to be messy. Yep, starting to leak. Maybe I should do a little bit at a time. All right, I took it down to this much. Let's see how much better that is. I'm probably going to put this in my smaller food processor because I think it'll get it a little bit more fine than that. Once you get your jars up to boiling, you'll be all right to turn it down to hot, to turn that off and just let it sit there, because it won't be long before you pull those out and make your jelly. All right, so this is before I've run it through my small food processor, and this is after. So it's a little bit smoother in there, a little bit chunkier here. So I'm going to take all of this and I'm going to run it through this food processor, and we'll see if we can't get that a little bit smoother. So it looks like our line here, we've got 5 cups of pulp. and see how much sugar we need to put in there to go along with that. All right, we're going to put this back up to a medium heat and get that back up to temperature. I'll be using 2 tablespoons of butter. If we get any kind of bubbles and foam on here, I'll use the butter to reduce that foam. And we'll be starting out with 4.5 cups of sugar. And then I've got 6 tablespoons of pectin. And we're also going to pop in a little bit of lemon juice. So I need to get that out and measure it out real quick. While this is still getting up to temperature, we're going to put in 1 tablespoon of lemon juice and pop that in there. We're going to put in 2 teaspoons of vanilla, and we'll get that stirred up. Once it gets up to temperature, we're going to toss in our sugar and start mixing that together. And once we get it to a good rolling boil, we'll toss in our pectin and get it ready to jelly. And then we'll get our jars ready and get this all wrapped up. All right, so we have just gotten ourselves up to a nice little boil here. This is going to be a jam, so we still got fruit pulp in it. And this might be closer to a preserve. Not quite, but pretty close. Kind of like it to have a little bit of body to it, so we'll see how it turns out. It may turn out to be god-awful. Never made it before. But it's up to a good temperature, so our next step here, I'm dumping our sugar. We'll get that mixed in and bring it back up to a boil. And then once that's up to boil, we'll let it go for a couple minutes, toss in our pectin, and we'll keep checking this for our consistency to see if we've jellified yet, because even though it's a jam, it still has to be jelly, or jellified, I should say. So this may turn out to be more like a honeydew butter than a jam, but we'll find out. So right now I'm just going to let this cook down a little bit, and then I'll toss in my pectin and we'll see how that's going. All right, so I've got this boiling here, a little bit of foam. I'm tossing a tablespoon of butter. I'm going to mix that in, see if we can reduce that foam a bit. It's not quite jelly, it's not quite jam, it's not quite preserves, it's not quite conserved. It's no compote, so it's probably going to be a honeydew butter. We're going to keep boiling this down a little bit till it's thickening up. Then we're going to toss in our pectin, and we're going to find out. Now we're going to go ahead and toss in our pectin here and stir it in as I'm dropping it. And we're going to let that gel this up a little bit more. It's going to add a little bit of acidity to it. Hopefully it will gel a little bit better, and that'll help it preserve a little bit better. We'll let that get mixed in, probably bring it up to a rolling boil for about a minute, and we'll test its consistency and make sure we're good. I'm going to do the old frozen plate test. Just going to pull out a little bit of this, pop it on here, and see if it runs. Yep, still a little too thin. Almost there, so we'll just let it cook for another minute or so, and we'll get ready to can it. All right, this appears to have passed the frozen plate test. Oh, I also had to add 1 more tablespoon of pectin. So your last step is going to be to pour this into your jars. And we're going to leave about a 1/2 inch of headspace at the top to make sure that it doesn't blow out whenever we water bath can it. So it's going to be right about to the bottom of that rim there. So I'm going to go ahead and fill up all of these, and then we'll have a look-see at the next step. Before you go ahead and toss your lids on and put this in your water bath canner, make sure that you wipe off the top of this rim in case you got any jelly on it, because we don't want to have a bad seal on that. So wipe it down with a damp cloth. Do that for every single jar. And then once you've got that done, you want to make sure that it's dried off so that we don't have any moisture in there. And then we'll grab our lids and pop those on. We'll go ahead and do that for every jar, and I'll show you how to put your lid on and how to put it on properly so we don't make a mess. All right, when you are putting your lids on, I'm kind of anal and I keep the blank spot there at the front so I know what I'm doing. I'll take my lid, put it on here, and make sure that it's nice and right in the middle. I'll put 2 fingers through the ring, hold it in place while I screw this on because I have bad luck with getting that on there correctly. So I'll do that with all these, and then we'll show you how the water bath canning works, and we'll be done. So when you do your water bath canning, basically I'm going to start out with your cans, jars, I should say, the same way you did whenever you were getting them prepared and ready to use. I'm going to put them all in boiling water, fill them up to about a ½ inch, an inch, well, probably closer to an inch above the rim there. Then we're going to bring the water to a boil. We'll let that boil for 10 minutes. Once it's boiled for 10 minutes, we'll take it off the burner and let it rest. And you can either pull your jars out at that time, or you can let them sit in the water and cool down all night. I usually only do that with a pressure cooker though, because I don't want to pull it apart and something blow up on me. You never know when something stupid's going to happen. I'm going to set this to high heat. Wait for this to come up to boil. Once it's done, I'll let these come out. I'll set them on a towel here and let them rest overnight. And we will have made ourselves some vanilla honeydew jam-ish preserve stuff. Yeah. And once you've reached your 10-minute mark, go ahead and turn off your burner. Just use your can lifter. Go ahead and get each one of these jars out. Set them over to the side so they can cool. Probably start hearing these lids pop here in a minute. And once the lids pop, that means they have sealed. And you'll be able to take the ring off and wipe everything down, get everything ready to label. There we go. 6 jars of Honeydew Vanilla Jam, conserve, preserve, butter. All right, that wraps up another episode of Brent's Backyard Redneckery. Hope you guys learned something today. If you did, make sure, give me a thumbs up, like the video, share it with your friends. Come back again next time. I'll tell you what you need to do. Y'all have a good one.